What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down on what really moved it today and what's happening after hours. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi did go up 2.58% today. So piggybacking off the broader market was largely reacting to this right here. So the Michigan consumer sentiment came in lower than anticipated, which isn't all that great, but it did give the market what it needs to justify future rate cuts. So optimism started to really fuel the market with that. So a lot of growth stocks moved up, including SoFi, not for the June 18th, but now for the July 30th meeting. You now have a 66.9% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut. So again, that was one of the biggest kind of points for today, what really pushed the broader market higher. SoFi did put out news, and that was this right here. So SoFi, a new SoFi partnership. And in my opinion, I don't really see this being a crazy, like, stop what you're doing, buy a SoFi, nor is it a reason to sell. It's just a good partnership that will ultimately lead to a lot of new members. So a couple of things. So a lot of grants, it looks like, so 500,000 in grants. Looks like every Tennessee resident between 18 and 24 is going to receive $5 in stock of their choosing. At no cost, receive potentially a chance to receive, I guess, 1,000 in stock ultimately. So yeah, I think this is good for SoFi member growth down the line. And you can clearly tell based on this and a couple of other partnerships that they've done over the last year, SoFi is really trying to strategically be part of everyone's day-to-day life. And that obviously means that people will grow up with SoFi and just become like a permanent member. And that's kind of SoFi's bigger plan, I think. Slow and steady ultimately, but like I said, I think this is good, but not a real reason to stop what you're doing and buy a SoFi. What is causing this after hours though, for it to go down 2.3%, is because of this. So Moody's did downgrade US, the whole market in its entirety, due to ever rising debt, high interest payment ratios. So that is causing a lot of uncertainty. This has happened in the past, causes a lot of downside, but it is just a momentary blip in my opinion. So even though a lot of people might be freaking out what is happening after hours, it's nothing really crazy. You do, although, see a lot of institutions selling out of SoFi. So as you can kind of see, this was just done roughly 20 minutes ago. Actually, I'll hit refresh just so you guys can see the most update. So yeah, 14.1 million, 19.6, 4.06, 3.08, 3.53. Big money was selling based on clearly that news. And this is why I always find comical about the market, right? So you see all this selling, even on the actual secondary market, same thing. You see a lot of selling, 1.79 million, 1.01, 1.5, all based on the bid side, meaning sells. So big money was selling because of this news. Even if we go over to the options, I'll kind of jump over to that quickly, because I always find it comical in the market how people do these sales before news actually comes out. So I don't find anything a coincidence in the market whatsoever, but 11 million in calls, 3.36 in puts, 47% of all the options being done today were bullish in nature. So generally good to see, but even if we pull this up right here, it was 666,000 5 minutes before the market does close. And based on the premium, you see a lot of bearish options. So ranging from 12 to 15, both calls and puts, but again, based on the orientation of where it was, majority were bearish. So timing wise, I find this very, very comical, but still, what do I know as far as that? So let me know your viewpoint on that. Based on this, for the calls that were purchased, you see a consensus for it to be above 14.50 to 15 going into next week. And then the bears kind of random pockets, but for the most part, consensus wise is like sub 13. With today being Friday, that does mean that, and it closing exactly at 13.92, that the 14 and above strike prices all expired worthless, which is rather unfortunate because you did have a couple big ones, 36,000 at the 14, 29,000 at 14.50, and then 105,000 at the 15. So it is unfortunate, but that's kind of the name of the game when it comes down to investing. But 10,000 at the 12, 21,000 at the 13, and then 17,000 at the 1350. So that should, regardless, give a nice bump up going into next week. So again, something to kind of keep in mind. Aside from that though, shorts did return 108,000 shares. They didn't really do all that much today, unfortunately, and you can kind of see that based on the teal line. So they just kind of sat back and chilled. There is more than 10 million shares available to be shorted at a very low cost to borrow. So if they really wanted, they could easily double down, but they are returning. So I see this as rather optimistic that they do see a little bit more upside with SoFi, but 13.51% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 146.76 million shares overall are being shorted. And based on this, with it right now at, or I guess closing at 1392, smack dab between this R1 and the pivot. So it didn't touch either the R1 or the pivot today. So just watch for my video over this weekend where I go over some expectations and so forth. But today there was no new analyst ratings, no substantial articles kind of talking about SoFi. There was that negative rating that came out yesterday, a $9 sell KBW, Tim, who has a 65% success rating. But aside from that though, it was just pretty much the technicals, broader market, just piggybacking off of that. Right now, after hours, it is getting dragged down below that 100-day moving average. So this red line right here, so that is 1373. So SoFi really needed to close above that to pretty much have some good momentum going into this upcoming week. So unfortunately, it is below that a little bit, but like I said, I think the States has been downgraded by various firms in the past, and yes, it causes some negative kind of pullback, but it is like nobody's talking about it at this stage, right? Like it happened, I think 2 years ago, like a year ago, and so forth, and it's just a blip, a buying opportunity if you ask me, unless you actually do believe that the US market in its entirety due to the debt levels is not investable. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind. So let me know your viewpoint. But aside from that though, SoFi most likely will just be kind of flirting with that 100-day moving average early part of this week. And because of a lot of the kind of volatility over the last couple of days, stochastic RSI has broken from its overbought status to somewhat neutral now. So that's kind of a good thing. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. What's your viewpoint on, for instance, Moody's downgrading the US? Do you think that's justified? Do you think it's not? What's your kind of 2 cents on all of that? And do you think it's like strategically placed? Because like I mentioned, Moody's coming out, this came out at 5:36 p.m. You have a lot of big transactions that were right before that. And same goes for options. Just in SoFi's case, I can only imagine a lot of the other more popular names out in the market, what the options activity was for that. So a lot of manipulation out there, but that's kind of what we do, right? That's what we love to invest in. So let me know your thoughts. Hopefully everyone has a good weekend ahead of them. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon and get buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. So definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.